Seeing the impacts of climate change. It is very unfortunate that the Ford government continues to fight us on climate change.
Get ready to see a lot of scenes like this. Politicians targeting the vote-rich GTA as a federal election draws near. With that election less than 2 months away, Federal Environment Minister Catherine McKenna was in Toronto today. She announced some upgrades to a massive Toronto park while also touting the Liberals' climate change plan. Then she took a shot at the Ford government. Angelina King joins us live from Rouge Urban National Park out in Scarborough. Angelina, the minister announcing some new additions for this park, but this was more than just a photo op.
Yeah, exactly. Not when there's a federal election coming up, and we can really feel that build up right now. There's been quite a few federal government announcements. Today, Catherine McKenna holding 2 more of those in the GTA. She used them to mainly talk about climate change, saying that the impacts are far-reaching, affecting animals, plants, the lands, people, the economy. For one announcement, she was in North York talking about a new energy-efficient rebate program for appliances. But before that, she was here at Rouge Urban National Park, talking about a new addition that is going to be coming here relatively soon, actually exactly where I'm standing. Right now, this space is an overflow parking lot for the Toronto Zoo, but in 3 years, it'll be transformed into a welcome and learning center at Rouge National Urban Park.
It's critically important, and nature needs our help.
And in less than a month, there'll be a new 5-kilometer trail and 2 visitor areas. Toronto's mayor says it'll benefit those living in high-rise buildings.
And it is so important to their health and well-being that there's a place where they can go to experience nature.
Ottawa is spending $20 million on the centre, money already budgeted for. Catherine McKenna made the announcement while pushing her message.
Climate change is an economic issue. Climate change is a health issue. Climate change is a national security issue. Climate change is a social justice issue. And most of all, climate change is an issue that will affect our children and grandchildren and their children and grandchildren.
She also announced a rebate program specifically for Ontario. Those who buy certain energy-efficient appliances can save up to $1,000. She also took aim at Conservative leaders.
Unfortunately, we all know what happened under Premier Ford. First day he came into office, he made it free to pollute, but he cut energy efficiency programs. So we're now working directly with Ontarians.
In a statement, Ontario's Environment Minister said in part, the Financial Accountability Officer said the Trudeau government's carbon tax will cost an extra $648 a year by 2022. Now the federal government is suggesting it could cost even more. I'm calling on my federal counterpart to be upfront and disclose the real cost of her government's carbon tax plan.
Well, I think Canadians are increasingly concerned with climate change.
This political science professor says it's a hot-button election issue. She says whether these types of announcements will resonate with voters depends on how they define climate change.
People care about their quality of life. They care about schools, they care about clean air and clean water, they care about their commute, and to the extent that we can connect climate change to those things, I think they are very concerned.
So you heard her say that this is a big topic in this year's federal election, especially compared to previous ones. And I asked her why. Why now? Why is the timing? She had a couple of reasons. One, she says this has really become a politically contentious issue. Two, she says that we're seeing the effects and feeling the effects of climate change more so now than ever before. And three, there's been a bit of a demographic shift. She says in general, younger people care more about climate change. They're more concerned because they're the ones that will be feeling the effects. And for somebody who specializes in environmental politics, she says she's underwhelmed with all the parties' platforms, except maybe the Greens, when it comes to climate change and the environment.
Thank you, Angelina. Oh, he's got that right. There's a state of emergency in Chatham, Kent. People living along the shores of Lake Erie are being told to leave due to strong winds and high water. We'll take you there for the very latest coming up. 2 men convicted of terrorism charges in a plot to derail a Via Rail train are going to get a new trial. Ontario's Court of Appeal ordering that the 2015 convictions of Raya Jasser and Shiab Essegayar be set aside. RCMP said at the time the two accused were plotting to derail a passenger train. Police claim the men had watched trains and railways in the GTA in 2013. Jasser and Esagaya were eventually found guilty on a total of 8 terrorism-related charges. Earlier this year, the pair argued in court that the judge who oversaw the case made several errors and that the jury was improperly selected. Jasser and Esagaya can apply to be released from prison while awaiting a new trial. We have a new drone video tonight of what's left in the wake of wildfires tearing through the Amazon rainforest. A record number of fires continue to burn across Brazil and other parts of South America. The country's National Space Research Institute says the number of fires has risen by 85% to more than 77,000 in the last year. About half of the fires have been in the Amazon region, many in just the past month. Brazil says the disaster is under control despite demands for further action from around the world. The president of Brazil has rejected an offer of aid. He turned down a multi-million-dollar package from the G7 to help fight the fires. And as Renee Filipponi tells us, his rejection, in part, appears to be personal.
Nós vamos, se Deus quiser, juntos.
President Jair Bolsonaro is turning down the millions in G7 aid unless he gets an apology from French President Emmanuel Macron. Macron has accused the Brazilian leader of lying about his commitment to fight climate change. And Bolsonaro sent out a series of tweets in Portuguese saying they cannot accept the aid based on Macron's attacks, and that the idea of an alliance with the G7 countries to save the Amazon treats Brazil like a colony when it should be respecting Brazil's sovereignty. 75,000 fires continue to burn in the Amazon, and environmentalists say the current efforts aren't going far enough, and that even if Brazil accepted the foreign aid, it still wouldn't be adequate. Fires are also burning, however, in a number of other neighboring countries, including Bolivia, Peru, and Paraguay. And the money, if Brazil doesn't want it, will be offered to fight fires there. Bolsonaro says his issue isn't with the G7, but a certain president. Macron seems to be the central target for his anger. He poked fun at the appearance of Macron's wife online, which the French president responded, saying it was extremely disrespectful and that it's sad for him and for Brazilians. Bolsonaro doesn't like the way he is being painted, specifically about his policies and the Amazon and deforestation, and why the fires are worse this year than in the past. But the populist leader does have some support. U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted saying, "I have gotten to know President Bolsonaro well in our dealings with Brazil. He is working very hard on the Amazon fires and in all respects doing a great job for the people of Brazil." He responded, thanking Trump for the support. There are now reports that the Brazilian government has ordered its diplomats to go on the offensive and spread the message that fires in the region are normal and that things are under control. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
A dog was shot and killed by police in Brampton after they say the dog became aggressive with officers.
The dog was very aggressive over here, over there, so there were 2 or 3 cops. They were trying to calm him down. And then ultimately I was told on the phone to go back in the back of my house. And then I heard gunshots.
Police were called to this home near Chinguacousy and Williams Parkway around 5 this morning for reports of a suspicious person. The resident says he called police after an unknown man knocked on his door. When police arrived and tried to gather information from the man, the dog that was with him became aggressive. Police say the dog lunged at the officer, and as a result, the dog was shot and killed. A 28-year-old man has been charged with trespassing and mischief. Mark Saunders is going to remain Toronto's top cop. The police board announcing today the chief's term has been extended until 2021. It's only the second time in the last 40 years a chief will serve more than a single term. Chris Glover joins us live now with more. Chris, what are people saying about the extension?
Well, high praise today coming from the chair of the police board. Andy Pringle sent us a statement that Saunders has championed the most significant modernization ever undertaken by Toronto police. But Mark Saunders' tenure has been seen an escalation in violence in Toronto. Last year, we saw a record number of homicides in the city and 2 mass casualty tragedies, starting with the van attack in April, followed by the Danforth shooting in July, and the arrest of a notorious serial killer in the Village. This year, we've seen an escalation in gang turf wars and ongoing tensions with Black Lives Matter, an activist group that demanded marching police officers be excluded from the Gay Pride Parade, a battle that the police lost. Now, Chief Mark Saunders has been at the helm of it all. Today, though, a grateful tone from the chief, who thanked police members. And in a tweet, he said, "It's a role that I'm honored to hold. It is a privilege to lead the Toronto Police Service, and I am humbled to be continuing."
So, Chris, one of his biggest critics is weighing in today. What did the Police Association have to say about all of this?
The president of the association, Mike McCormick, says his members are disappointed and in desperate need of a reset. He attacked Saunders on pretty much everything you could, from police operations to staffing to the results in the streets. Here's how McCormick put it.
We were surprised that, given that our morale is at the lowest that it's been in decades, we have a staffing crisis within the Toronto Police Service. We also are experiencing the highest incidence of gun crime that we've ever experienced in the City of Toronto.
Toronto's mayor taking a diplomatic tone today, saying with this extension, the chief can complete his work of trying to modernize the police force. John Tory says he is confident today's extension will ensure stability. So the chief was promoted from deputy to chief in 2015. He'll continue to lead the service until 2021, when it's expected a new person will take on the obviously challenging role.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Imagine having a nightmare of a neighbor who lets their grass grow for months at a time with weeds towering more than a meter tall. Usually, you would report them to 311 and a bylaw officer might give them a fine. But that's not an option for a longtime North York homeowner. His neighbor is a vacant lot, and the owner happens to be the City of Toronto. Shannon Martin has his story.
It's very terrible, like nightmare.
I'm tired and I'm frustrated. The grass is so ugly.
The grass was taller than you.
Yes, correct. Very tall.
Hao Chan Wu says the trouble started back in 2017 when the city acquired an empty lot next door. Soon the grass towered over Wu himself. He started snapping photos and sending emails and calling 311.
Welcome to 311 Toronto.
He even put up this sign urging his neighbors to complain.
You can see the weed. It's taller than me, right? Maybe 1.8 meter.
Wu says a crew eventually arrived, mowing the lawn 3 times in 2017. Last year it was done twice. So far this year, just once, and that was last week. The city actually has a long grass and weeds policy. Homeowners are expected to keep their grass less than 20 centimeters or 8 inches. Otherwise, they could end up with a fine.
For this own property, who can give it? The city, the fine and the ticket, right?
Right, so the city can fine us regular people for not maintaining our grass, but who's going to ticket the city?
Yes, makes sense, right?
A spokesperson for the city's transportation department told CBC Toronto in an email the land was acquired to facilitate improvements to the North York Centre South Service Road. There's no equipment here or anything, like you wonder what they're doing with the land.
No.
And he's never seen any city workers on site, except when he's called to complain about the weeds. He just wants the city to care for its property the same way he takes care of his.
Keep it nice, right? We are the whole area. We are nice.
Shannon Martin joins us now. And Shannon, we heard Mr. Wu calling on his neighbors to get involved. So did they?
They really have. We talked to another neighbor on the street. He's been calling 311. He's been sending emails for the past couple of years. They say they're really not trying to be a pain here. They're just saying, we like our neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. Let's all take care of it.
You've also been making some calls, trying to get a hold of the transportation department. What did they have to say?
So they tell us they do own the property, but when we ask for more information, like what's the budget for maintaining lots like this? Has there been maybe a private contractor that's been hired to mow the lawn, but they're not keeping up? We didn't get any response from them on that. But the city councillor for the area, John Filion, has a theory. He thinks the city might have bought the property and then lost track of it, and that's why it's not being maintained. He says he doesn't think that the lot has anything to do with the construction of that service road. All of that's to say, though, it's very little comfort for Wu and his neighbors. They really just want to see this lot taken care of, and they're going to keep up the campaign.
If you own it, the city makes you take care of it, so
That's
the
right.
city should be taking care of theirs.
You would think.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
It's being called perhaps the worst flooding a section of Chatham-Kent has seen in years. Strong southern winds have sent waves crashing into the Erie shoreline. A state of emergency is in effect for this section of the community.
It looks like a bit of a war zone down here. Our place in particular was hit quite hard.
A lot of these people have this as their property. We've spoke to several residents today that have lost their property. So I don't think that easing their, we can't really say anything to ease their mind in regards to their property loss. But what we can do is let them know that we're here to help accommodate them.
The municipality is providing shelter and transportation for affected residents and their pets. People are being asked to evacuate their homes. There's close to 100 properties along this stretch. No injuries have been reported at this point. And we watched out there last year. They had some similar issues with flooding, and it's back again this year. And we keep saying this, Colette, these 100-year events are now happening almost every year.
Yeah, and this is what we're seeing in that area, Dwight. You know, you had all the ingredients kind of there. We had a system moving in, so they had additional rainfall coming through, but also you've got low shoreline, high water level, and then the winds coming from a direction that just pulls them from the Lake Erie onto the shore. And that's what's going on still, but to a lesser extent. So the winds are improving, still into a southwesterly flow here at Chatham-Kent, coming in about 26 kilometers an hour. Those are the sustained winds, but one of the problems really been seeing over the last 24 hours is that some of the wind gusts, especially through the overnight hours last night, were up there around 50 kilometers an hour and stronger, and just pushing that water up against the shoreline there. And again, exacerbating things was the rainfall that moved through as well. All right, we bring it back to the GTA and have a look at our current temperatures. Yeah, I guess it feels a little cool because of the cloud cover and the showers, but there's humidity out there with this system moving through. So it's 21, but we do have a humidex. It feels like 28, so it just sort of depends if you can keep dry, and that's easier to do now. I've actually put this on going back to this afternoon, the radar, because I wanted to loop it so you could see that more organized band that went through. And now we're just into some spotty showers and a few pop-up thunderstorms. So very isolated, but into these evening hours still could have that risk of getting wet because of just a few little pop-ups that we're seeing. Otherwise, a clearing trend through the overnight sets us up for a lovely day tomorrow, and then isolated showers tomorrow evening again become possible and move back into the picture. And then we get a break, and Thursday overnight we may see some wet conditions coming back in. But improving conditions overnight tonight, Dwight, 17 tomorrow. It will be a nice day for most of us the entire day, and just a few showers in the evening possible, but 25 the high.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
After the break, one man's journey to assisted death.
See you on the other side, eh?
Thanks.
All right.
One by one, his loved ones say goodbye. That's because Michael, who has Huntington's disease, is about to end his own life. Coming up, his unique point of view on medically assisted death and how his wife is managing the decision and life afterwards.
Can you take my hand? And as far as saying goodbye, I think I said goodbye 10 years ago because the personality changed. So the man I married hasn't been with me for a long time. Are you happy?
Me? Yeah. Yep.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Here's a look at some of the stories we're working on you for the next half hour. Former Blue Jays pitcher Josh Donaldson, not pitcher, is living up to his Bringer of Rain nickname today. Donaldson is in town for the first time since being traded, how he's feeling being back in Toronto. And a little later, for the first time ever, a pharmaceutical company is being held responsible for the opioid crisis. How the court decision in the U.S. could impact lawsuits here in Canada. That's all coming up. On a Sunday afternoon last month, Michael McAuliffe had a goodbye party. His friends and family brought his favorite food. They shared stories and even sipped on scotch. Later that night, Michael would die with the help of a doctor. For nearly 3 decades, he's lived with Huntington's disease, but at 69 years old, he could no longer read, struggled to speak, and was living with chronic pain. We spoke with Michael and his wife, Vicky, about how he chose to say goodbye and why, for him, it was a reason for celebration.
I know he's in a better place. I know his fight. I know his pain is over with. I tell people Michael's soul is now soaring through the universe, happy to be out of the broken body.
Are you guys getting into a picture?
Yes. Okay. 3, 2, 1. No, that's good. That's good. I like it. Good.
We'll see you on the other side, eh? Thanks. All right.
What you thinking, Mike?
I'm sorry?
What you thinking?
Me?
Yeah.
This is a pleasure.
Is it nice to actually see people?
Oh,
Come
wonderful.
in.
Yeah.
Now, you don't feel sad.
Now?
Yeah.
No.
How you doing, Mikey? Did you eat food?
Yeah. And vodka.
And vodka. This is his very favorite. Yeah. So then he told me, my brain is starting to have little explosions in it, and my muscles are starting to have little explosions, which means he's going to the next stage. So
I don't want this.
I don't want to go to the next stage. It's
Because
time.
I know what that is.
We know what that is, yes. So it's time to die. So
Peacefully.
Peacefully.
More than 10 years ago, when my father was living and dying with Huntington's disease, I visited and he said he really regretted he didn't have the courage to kill himself.
Cheers, Michael.
Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers, Vicky. I said to him, do you realize how lovely this is? Michael, we're going to have a farewell party. You are going to know when you go to wherever the next stage is, you're going to know how people feel about you. This is a blessing.
It's been fun, Mike.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed myself with you.
And
making some nice memories.
I'm glad.
I love you so much. You know
Thank
that.
you for help and being a part.
I hope you have an easy passage, and I hope that you're going to be our guardian angel.
I will be. This can be good for everybody. Not the result, but the process. Being able to have choices is extremely important to me, not to others, but it is to me.
Your father would be very proud of you.
I'm glad.
For all, not just what you've done until now, but what you're doing right now. Your father would be very proud of you.
And how is Vicky doing through all of this?
Managing. Because we made a decision, this is progress.
Okay.
For her and us.
Can you take my hand? And And as far as saying goodbye, I think I said goodbye 10 years ago because the personality changed. So the man I married hasn't been with me for a long time.
You happy? Me? Yeah. Yep.
People ask me, what's going to happen afterwards? I have no idea.
And he was right over here.
He died here very, very peacefully, yes, and we had a chair set up for him. It was a lawn chair with the ottoman, so he could relax, sit back and enjoy, and we had a lovely little chat before he left. My mourning is over, I think. Now it's time to start living again. I think that's my attitude. It might feel cold for other people, but if you haven't watched your partner die for that many years, it's a big relief when they're finally out of the pain and out of the misery. And Michael tried so hard to write proper letters, and he knew he couldn't do it anymore. And he couldn't read in the last month. He couldn't read anymore. So all of these declines were just debilitating for him, and he just couldn't fight it anymore. Mr. McAuliffe, here's a coffee just for you.
Thank you.
It has love in it, Michael. And so Michael got up every morning. I'm sure I told you this before. He got up every morning, regardless of where I was going, be it 11 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, and he made me a coffee. And I'd say to him, thank you, Michael. This is the only coffee I'm going to get all day that has love in it. And then sometimes he'd stay up. Sometimes I'd put him back to bed before I left. So it's those little things that are special. It's all the money in the world can't get you that.
Like, what do you think comes next?
Party? Parties.
There's lots of parties?
Yeah.
So after death, you're going to be a party animal?
More than now. Yes, more than now.
Like, how do you want people to remember you?
However they like. I don't have any suggestion. Just whatever they like matters. I reserve the right not to accept their words. I can judge. Thanks.
Medically assisted death has been legal here since 2016. According to the Office of the Chief Coroner, there have been more than 3,300 medically assisted deaths in Ontario over that time. The most recent yearly stats show nearly 1,600 deaths between June 2018 and June 2019. We'll be right back. He was known as the bringer of rain during his time in Toronto, so it is fitting that it's a rainy day in the city as Josh Donaldson gets set to play at Rogers Centre for the first time since he was traded by our Jays. Greg Ross joins us live from there tonight. And Greg, Donaldson coming back while he's at the top of his game.
Yeah, Dwight, looking a lot like the Josh Donaldson that Blue Jay fans will remember from 2015 and 2016 when he led the Jays to some playoff runs. He's looking very much like his team is going to go to the playoffs this year. The Atlanta Braves currently sitting first in the National League East Division. He's got 32 home runs, so he's having a great year. But let's go back to those playoff runs that he had with the Blue Jays. I mean, back in 2015, he really injected life into the baseball community here in Toronto. He fell in love with this team in his first year here in 2015, fell in love with this city, and the fans and the city loved him right back.
It didn't take long for Josh Donaldson to make his mark with the Blue Jays. Like in this game against the White Sox early in his first season, Donaldson became the first Blue Jay ever to record 4 hits, 4 RBIs, and 4 runs in the same game.
He'll get there, dives in and caught it!
But Donaldson didn't just dazzle fans with his bat.
Donaldson bare hands, fires and gets him.
Donaldson quickly rose to superstar status, not just in Toronto, but across the country.
Josh Donaldson, without a doubt, is the best third baseman.
By the end of the 2015 season, Donaldson was among the league leaders in almost every offensive category, and he led the Blue Jays in home runs with 41.
And he's done it again!
Good enough to earn Donaldson American League MVP honors, and in doing so, helped lead the Jays back to the postseason for the first time in more than 20 years, making it as far as the American League Championship Series.
You know, 2015 was a special year for me and this organization. You know, I was told that this city would go on fire if you were able to get into the playoffs, and you know, those people weren't wrong that told me that. That was one of the most special years that I've been a part of. The city was on fire. It was electric.
There's a drive deep to left.
Donaldson picked up right where he left off in his second season in Toronto.
He scored a pair of runs. This is a deep drive to center.
He had another monster year at the plate, finishing 4th in MVP voting.
A 3-homer day for Donaldson. Here comes a runner, Donaldson. He's saving.
And he was also an integral part of the Blue Jays' second straight playoff run.
The fans love him. No boos tonight, all cheers.
He was a fan player. Everybody loved him.
I will forever be grateful for the fans and how they took me in from day one and how they had received me here.
Now, Donaldson's time here with the Blue Jays didn't exactly end on a high note. He dealt with a lot of injury problems in his last season and a half here. Today, he told us that he's hoping that this little mini 2-game series can help bring some closure to his tenure in Toronto. And Dwight, you mentioned that nickname, Bringer of Rain. I asked him today if he had anything to do with all this rain that we've been having, and he said, hey, you think it's just a nickname? Then he kind of paused for a second, smiled, and said, it's good to be back.
Thank you for that, Greg. Now, Colette, I'm going to say that you actually predicted this rain, so I don't know if Josh brought it with us, but we were with our significant others at the Blue Jays game, I guess last Sunday, and our Jays did not look good. We were wishing that Josh was still in town.
I know. It was hard. It was hard losing him. I was in spring training down in Florida for March break and saw spring training and saw him there on, you know, third base, but not as a Blue Jay. It just was very difficult to see, but anyway, we welcome him back. He did so many good things for us. Bringing the rain, I don't know about that, but we've had it today, and still a few little showers out there. It's 21 degrees. That's the current temperature, but look at the humidex. So, yeah, there's still some humidity out there. Feels like we're around, in some cases, around the GTA at 30, but for Toronto, 29, so very close to it. This is a little bit of thunderstorm activity. See these little cells, little pop-ups here? Not terribly strong at this point, but some downpours in there. And we have that risk of just a few of these isolated storms sort of showing up here and moving back through the area. But the main line is well gone off to the east and been breaking up as well. So some instability hangs in there. So this evening, I'm going to keep my umbrella with me. I go outside, just so you know, you might want to have it around. Then we watch that push through, and what happens the rest of the night is we do eventually get into a nice clearing trend, and that's great because it means that most of the day, Wednesday, is looking really good. So sunshine, and then just into the afternoon, we start to see a few more clouds building in. And again, a little trough coming through, so a bit of instability comes back, so some isolated showers will pop up. Most of southern Ontario stays dry. Just a few areas will experience some wet conditions there. A nice day again on Thursday. We get a repeat. And then Thursday night into Friday morning. This is going to probably break up quite a bit before it reaches the lower Great Lakes. But just know that there's another system coming through, so some wet conditions through the overnight on Thursday night. There we go with those wind gusts. Yeah, finally kind of easing off. Of course, we were talking about Chatham-Kent earlier, so still some southwesterly flow coming in off the lake. At times, some of those gusts might get a little bit stronger towards tomorrow night, but otherwise things improving. 16 to 18 for the overnight lows tonight with that clearing trend. A nice day tomorrow with mid-20s. And then we have a look at what happens after that with those temperatures. They look good through the week until we get to the holiday weekend, Dwight. And then just a little bit of a dip as we get towards the weekend, I'm sorry to say.
Don't like the dip.
No, but at least the sky conditions look good. The water temperatures are great. I think everyone will still have a good time.
Glass half full. Thanks, Colette.
You got it.
A landmark decision in the opioid crisis. An Oklahoma judge has ruled that pharma giant Johnson & Johnson must pay $757 million to the state for fueling their opioid epidemic.
Defendants caused an opioid crisis that is evidenced by increased rates of addiction, overdose deaths, and neonatal abstinence syndrome in Oklahoma.
This is the first time a U.S. judge has found a drug maker accountable for the opioid crisis, and it is a crisis. Opioid overdoses kill more than 130 people a day in the U.S., and here in Canada, an estimated 12 people every day. The ripple effect of this ruling could impact lawsuits against drug makers here in Canada. Johnson & Johnson immediately gave notice it plans to appeal the decision. Now, the lead plaintiff in a Canadian billion-dollar class action against dozens of pharma companies and their distributors is a former doctor who himself got addicted to opioids. He and his lawyers are emboldened by the Oklahoma decision.
In the early 2000s, with the push to treat pain aggressively, we exposed too many people, people like myself who have a proclivity to, like, when they get an opioid, they feel euphoric, and now the cat's out of the bag, and you've just created a potential disaster for this person with a future addiction.
Daryl Gebian says a thumb injury led to a Percocet and fentanyl addiction. It ended up destroying his marriage. He lost his medical license and did multiple stints in rehab. The province of British Columbia is also engaged in a suit against a number of pharmaceutical companies. A lawyer involved in the case says Canada doesn't have a public nuisance statute, which is what Oklahoma used to argue against Johnson & Johnson, but says there are similar rules here around making false representations.
The statute says that if you break those kinds of rules and you cause the crisis, you must pay for all of the past damage and all of the future damage. So all of the, like in a public nuisance case, all of the money that the government spends to fix the problem is going to be paid for by the people who made the problem.
He added BC's class action covers all of the provinces and territories, and if successful, will be a victory for all Canadians affected by the opioid crisis.
It was both empowering and infuriating to know that the person who I needed to hear those words is not here to hear them.
While the man they accuse of sexually assaulting them as minors may be dead, 16 women had their day in court to encourage prosecutors to bring Jeffrey Epstein's associates to justice. More on that after the break. Jeffrey Epstein's accusers couldn't face him, but today they did get their day in court. Charges against the wealthy financier were dropped after his suicide, but a judge ruled the women could be heard. Carolyn Dunn has more.
They arrived at court with purpose, the now grown women who say they were young victims of Jeffrey Epstein. The criminal sex trafficking case against him dismissed with his death. A judge ruled they should have their day in court anyway.
It was so powerful in there, hearing all the other victims and very similar stories that I have endured. I wanted to thank the judge for letting us speak, having some closure. It's still going to be a rough road, but I also wanted to thank all the survivors that had reached out to me as well.
I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago.
More than a dozen told their story, many more not here. Some stayed anonymous, others faced forward, like Shantae Davis, who describes the first of what she says were many rapes.
All I could say was a meek, "No, please stop." But that just seemed to excite him more. He continued to rape me, and when he was finished, hopped off and went to the shower. I pulled my shorts up and I ran as fast as I could back to my own villa, my feet bloody from the rocks.
They testified what Epstein had taken from them and what they live with today. Humiliation and shame, a common theme. But so was empowerment.
All I'm going to say is today is a day of power and strength.
With Epstein's suicide, the criminal case against him is dismissed, but authorities continue to investigate his alleged underage sex trafficking ring and anyone who may have been involved.
I'm very glad that there is an investigation into this and the prosecution, because children are the most vulnerable.
Those children, now women, implored investigators to bring Epstein's co-conspirators and enablers to justice. He is beyond punishment. Others are not. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Washington.
First, want to say thank you to the fans, because in this video, several points were made. So you voting for this video means that you want a world where we're all treated equally under the law.
Who is that? We know. It's Taylor Swift getting political at last night's MTV Awards. Swift won 3 honors, tying with Ariana Grande and Billie Eilish for most wins of the night. Yelena is here with all the deets from last night.
Yes.
We'll get to the big winners in a moment, but let's talk about these statements coming from Miss Swift.
I mean, we've known for a little while now that she's definitely becoming more and more political, vocal about the things that matter to her. So I'm going to give you a look at the show last night, where we talk a little bit more about why she wanted to do this. So here's a look at the performance that she did, which very much mimics the style, the color, the feel of the video that she has for Everybody Calm Down, which is certainly a message to really, you could say, for pro-gay rights and for the LGBTQ community. And so that is something that is very near and dear to her heart. At the end of this video, she puts up a call for a petition, and a lot of people did actually sign it. So much so that she ended up saying, "We really need a response." Have a listen to this.
At the end of this video, there was a petition, and there still is a petition. For the Equality Act, which basically just says we all deserve equal rights under the law. And I want to thank everyone who signed that petition, because it now has 500,000 signatures, which is 5 times the amount that it would need to warrant a response from the White House.
Still waiting there.
She's making a point.
Very much so.
She's making a
I like
point.
RuPaul carrying the crowd there, too, in that video. That was so cool. All right, we'll get past the politics for now. Let's talk about the big wins of the night.
Okay, so, you know, when we talk about Ariana Grande, for example, she wasn't there. A lot of people were hoping that she would be, but she wasn't there. She ended up not showing. Same with BTS, because the Korean pop group, ended up taking the award for that. They weren't there. However, you know who was there? Well, they probably came in on an Old Town Road. You know what I'm talking about. But I'm not going to play the music for you. Don't worry. You're not going to get the earworm in your head.
I can sing it if you want.
But yeah. I love that, Dwight. Lil Nas X, Billy Ray Cyrus. They actually played another song called Panini. I'm not making that up. It's after this.
It's actually the top 10, I think, right
I
now.
think it's doing really well.
Hey, Panini,
Well, if you want to talk,
be a meanie. Oh, I'm sorry, Young. I won't interrupt anymore.
You know what you're talking about, Joy. Now, this is, when we talk about Old Town Road, the longest running number one song in the history of the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It won Song of the Year and Best Direction. So the two of them got up there, and they were pretty happy about that. Also happy, Cardi B. She took to the stage to perform, and she also accepted an award for Best Hip Hop Award. This was for Money. So she was in fine spirits. And you know who else is having a really good night, Dwight? Missy Elliott. She ended up taking this Vanguard Award. I'm going to give you a clip of her right now. It's kind of like a Lifetime Achievement Award. So she went back in the day. Have a listen.
Missy be putting it down. I'm the hottest round. Tell y'all mothers, y'all can stop me now. Listen to me now. I'm lasting 20 rounds. And if you want me, then come on, give me now. Is you with me now? Then biggie bounce. I know you did the way I switch my style.
Holla, it's so good. It was really a
You're
great
making me want to watch this show. I missed it.
I'm telling you, it was really good, Dwight. I'm glad to be able to share some of the clips with you, including this one I'm about to show you. So on the Canadian front, on the Toronto front, Shawn Mendes, he got up there. He ended up performing a song with Camila Cabello. So let's take a look at that one right now.
I love it when you call me señorita. I wish I could pretend I didn't need you, but every touch is what I love.
Now, I have to tell you, I don't know where his shirt is. I'm not sure, but that's okay. We know that he had a good time, and a lot of the people were loving it. I think it was nice because they had high energy performances, but also, you know, Taylor Swift getting political added a bit of nice spice.
Yeah, and it's nice to end with the Canadian King, who's like the pop star king of the world right
he's
now.
so
man.
on
We've
fire.
got rap covered, we got pop covered.
Yeah, right?
And this,
Yeah.
we're good.
We're good.
Thanks, Yelena.
See you soon, Dwight.
You can expect a high of 22 degrees Celsius.
You guys trying to replace Colette? What was that? It tells the weather, it dances, and it could greet you at your next visit to the bank. More on HSBC's new robot after the break. Customers at a downtown bank will soon be greeted by a new face. HSBC is rolling out a humanoid robot at its York Street branch this week The bank is promising that Pepper will improve customer experience. Our video producer, Richard Adjudicate, met the robot and put this story together.
Pepper's about elevating our employees because Pepper's going to be bringing in all types of clients into this branch and other branches. Our employees will be able to focus on what they do best, which is providing advice to our clients.
You can expect a high of 22 degrees Celsius.
We see the role of humanoid robotics as augmenting our wonderful people to give them more time to serve more customers and high value-added transactions, because Pepper can gamify some of those experiences and some of those more binary interactions, telling the customer how to use the ATM, for example, or how to self-serve. It takes the pressure off the lines, it reduces customer waiting times, and the waiting experience improves.
Just don't take away their jobs. We all like talking to a human being, after all.
I say that artificial intelligence is not there yet. Don't be afraid of this thing coming in and stealing your job. It's not there to do that. It's there to alleviate some of those menial tasks that you don't enjoy doing, or some of the repetitive tasks. That's what automation is about. It's about taking some of that lightweight stuff off of people's hands. So it's augmenting the workforce by answering some of the simple questions and then passing off to the employees when they're ready.
May I help you with anything else?
I hope they can issue coffee and a cake. That'd be great.
Touch the green arrow when you're done writing your name.
Okay, as we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. A mixed bag with S&P TSX closing up almost 85 points. The Dow Jones down a little under 121 points, and our Canadian dollar closing higher than yesterday at 75.37 cents US. Stay with us. We will be right back. Got soaked on a lunchtime walk to the gym today. So today, not so good, but the wet weather's kind of spotty over the next couple of days.
Yeah, it is. Today was really why didn't you have your umbrella? Today was our mess. I'll let you think about that.
You did tell us it was going to rain, yes.
Yeah, you know, today was really our kind of messy day, and then there's a few little spots where there might be some showers coming up, but very isolated. So we're really getting out of this. Overnight tonight, 17. Tomorrow, a nice day, and 25.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Chris Glover has you covered late night tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.